Anybody here from Chicago? I would have had an NBA championship had it not been for the Chicago Bulls. Let's just get that out of the way on the front. 30 seconds away from winning a championship. That guy, John Paxton, hit this three to sink our possibilities of, I could have had a ring on my finger right now. It's an honor for me to be here today. I flew in from Sacramento, so about 3,000 miles, to be here because I think this is the most important topic that we can be talking about today. You guys are sacrificing your Sundays, and I'm very thankful. I'm going to thank Ralph just for your leadership. You've heard from a host of people up here just talking about his commitment. So just thank you. Thank you to the Casey Foundation and all the funders out here, and then the practitioners that are doing such great work. Can we give them folks just a quick round of applause as well? You know, my goal is quite simple as the mayor of Sacramento. I won't get into a lot of background of where I grew up and the challenges that I faced as a young person. But my goal as a mayor of Sacramento are really simple. I want our city to be known for great public schools around the country. I want Sacramento to be a place that people are talking about around the country because we are known for great public schools. And that essentially means is that we ensure that every child in every community has an opportunity to go to excellent schools. And that is not happening currently in Sacramento. It is not happening in most cities around the country. I have the distinct honor of being the chair of Arnie Duncan's task force for mayors around the country, as well as U.S. Conference of Mayors. I want you folks to know that the foundations, the private sector, again, the practitioners, all of us play a critical role, but we need our elected officials to also have a seat at the table. And you folks have to hold us accountable, because we're going to make policies at the federal level, at the state level, and at the local level that may allow us or prevent us from doing the work that we're talking about doing. And you folks have to hold us accountable. And I'm here today to say I want to be held accountable, and I want to be a part of the team that has taken on this extreme challenge. I think most of you know that the research shows and bears out that, you know, children that are not reading at grade level are impacted drastically in terms of their life chances and life outcomes. I think most of you know that if kids aren't reading at grade level, they don't usually go on to graduate from high school or college. They're going to earn $1 million less in their lifetime than those who do graduate from college. These are statistics that we're all very familiar with. In our country, over the next 20 years, there's going to be 120 million high-paying, high-skilled jobs in our country. And we're only going to have 50 million kids at the rate we're going to be able to fill those jobs, which essentially means 70 million kids are going to fill those jobs from India and China and from somewhere else other than our country. This is a crisis. It really is a crisis. And we are in a moment of time where we can do something about that crisis if we put our goodwill together in our efforts. And our question for us today is, you know, what are we going to do about it? And that's what I think this whole conference is about, talking about solutions and how we get there. Did you know that the American children in school today are going to be the first group of kids less educated than their parents? That's appalling in our country. So when you think about Sacramento, I get a chance to talk a little bit about Sacramento, but when you think about Sacramento, I think we have some competitive advantages in Sacramento to really be a leader in what we're talking about today. You know, Sacramento is not a super large city. We have about 500,000 people who live in Sacramento. We're a city that's the capital of California, which is the 8th largest economy in the world. But at the same token, you know, we're not too big, but we can make a really significant statement. I think our advantages in Sacramento is that we're high profile in terms of a city. We're the capital, as I said, of California. And a mayor in a city like Sacramento can really take advantage of the bully pulpit in a way that I think can lead to demonstrative outcomes at the end of the day. Let me give you one example. A year ago, we did a green initiative in 2010. In Sacramento, we have agriculture, and we have energy, and we have solar and wind and good weather. We had a green initiative where folks were doing green, you know, for the last couple of years, but we weren't coalesced around a shared vision. And in 2010, using the bully pulpit, we got folks together and we did some remarkable things. We had monthly speakers come in. We had Tom Friedman from the New York Times come in. We had Bobby Kennedy Jr. And we had speakers from all over the country coming to Sacramento. And we all galvanized around this notion that we wanted Sacramento to diversify its economy. We were over-reliant on government jobs, and we were over-reliant on the real estate industry. We knew the green economy was an opportunity for Sacramento. So now here we are in Sacramento a year later. We are now becoming known as the Emerald Valley. We have transformed Sacramento to a place that people all over the country are talking about the work we're doing. And that's just a mayor really convening people, aligning, getting people to leverage and magnify a lot of times what's already going on. And I think the best practices that you guys have already seen, we can do a much better job of highlighting the things going on and really convening folks. So my goal this year was really to galvanize our city around one goal, something that is tangible, something that we focus on, something that everyone at the individual level can have an impact in, and something that would get results. And we have laser focus. So in January 2010, I announced in our city, in our state of the city, that we were going to focus on third grade reading. We felt that as a city, we have an opportunity to be the first city in the country where every one of our third graders, by the time they graduate, are reading at grade level. That's our goal. It's big, it's bold. So when you think about this for a second, you know, in our community, and you've heard from a lot of speakers, in our communities, there's a lot of complacency around public education. So I needed to create an environment where there was a sense of urgency in our community. So again, using the state of the city to do that. Let me give you a couple statistics. In Sacramento, we only have 39% of our third graders reading at grade level. 39% in Sacramento. We're made up of 5 school districts, 39% of third graders. Even more terrifying is, in Sacramento, we have 19 zip codes. Not one zip code in the city of Sacramento do we have more than 70% of third graders reading at grade level. In the capital of California, there's not outrage. People are not alarmed. We talk about education being the civil rights issue of our time. Hogwash. We've got to make it a real issue, and we've got to get into the consciousness and the psyche of everybody in our community, and that's what Sacramento's aimed to do. So in that state of the city, I gave these dismal statistics. We talked about how this notion of, if you look at our third grade reading scores in Sacramento, over the last 7 years, we've improved about 2% a year. At the rate we're going, it will take 20 years to get to 80%. 20 years. That's a generation of kids that we're losing till we get to 80% of our third graders. That pace is too slow. It's not acceptable in Sacramento. And we're going to do something about it. And I think that's why the work you're doing here is going to be so important. We're learning from folks that have done it. We want to be a part of the initiative going forward. We want to be a city that you point to and say, look, in Sacramento, they get it and they're doing something about it in a real way. And we've got to measure those outcomes. So again, what I did in the state of the city is I challenged people in the community. I said, look, we need to create an environment where every senior comes out of retirement and starts to tutor kids. We said, if you're an employee in the workplace, please allow your employees to take an hour a week off during their lunchtime and go tutor a mentor in a school. We've asked businesses, adopt a school. Adopt a local elementary school in your community. We want to partner up with AmeriCorps and these service organizations and figure out very tangible things that volunteers can do in our school system. Because you cannot tell me kids can't learn. Don't tell me that because a kid lives in a certain zip code, he cannot do equally as well or better than his counterpart in an affluent community. We know that's not the case. But if we don't have the will and the commitment as a city, as a state, and as a country, we're not going to get there. And it's going to take everyone in our community to do it. So what we're doing in Sacramento is we're partnering with our 5 school districts, which I mentioned earlier. We're finding ways to plug into existing interventions that our school districts are already doing. Dibbles, you guys have heard of Dibbles. Every 2 weeks, they measure and determine, how well kids are doing. Those benchmarks, assessments are important in looking at literacy and looking at progress. We're trying to figure out how to get more resources. We're talking about partnering with Wireless Generation. Is Wireless Generation here? Somebody from Wireless Generation here? In the back? Okay, great. So we're partnering with Wireless Generation. There's something called BURST that a lot of you know. These are the programs that we need to have in our schools. And what BURST does, it talks about training volunteers. It talks about how we make sure that kids are being pulled and creating an environment where they get one-on-one tutoring And what's interesting about Burst, it's a dynamic program that you're not only bringing kids out on a regular basis, you're bringing them out and you're putting them with other kids based on their skill level. So you may not be in the same grade, you might not be the same age, but it's about skill level. So there are things that work in our country. And what we need to do is figure out how to get there as a city and certainly as a country. So let me just close with this. There's only one prohibiting factor that I believe in Sacramento for us to be successful. It's really about having the capacity and the resources to get there. Because as a mayor, I'm going to do everything I can to create the environment. I think that as a mayor, I have the ability to rally a community in terms of high impact. Reading at third grade is not controversial. You know, a lot of things I do are controversial. You know, I'm not a, can I say this one, Ralph? Okay, I'm asking the master for permission. I'm not a big fan of seniority-based layoffs. I think that in our classrooms, we need great teachers in our classroom, but third grade reading is not controversial. So that's where I think it gives us an opportunity. It's very tangible, and it has the ability to be high impact. So while we're talking about third grade in Sacramento, we know that early childhood is important, but it's a start. And if I can get our community to think about third graders and every kid who graduates third grade can read at grade level, then we will be a city that folks will be talking about. And yes, we know that second grade and first grade and kindergarten and 0 to 8 are very important, but we want to start with that laser focus. And we're looking at this not as a one-year initiative. This will be something that we're going to work toward over the next decade. And I'm very proud of our community. I think the last thing I'd like to say really quickly is that our community has said, look, we want a singular focus, and third grade gives us pride if we can be out in front and do something that other cities aren't doing. California has went from first to worse. Right now, I'm a big fan of our governor and our state legislators, but I'll tell you what, there's not a lot of hope, there's not a lot of optimism in terms of our education system in California. And I hope that you guys do not judge us accordingly. Don't leave us out of your studies because we can't get folks at the state level maybe to do what we want. Because I have a chance to lead the mayors, and the mayors up and down the state want to be a part of this solution. We want to be a part of the dialogue. I think this has the opportunity to be a bottom-up intervention. You know, we always talk about policies at the federal and state level and top-down. This is about volunteers. This is about parents. This is about teachers. This is about community-based organizations coming together and demanding an opportunity where our kids can do extremely well. Our mantra in Sacramento is going to be, we want to be the first city in the country where all of our kids in third grade can read at grade level. I'm going to close with one statistic to leave you with this. And it's one that's a little bit mind-boggling on one hand, but there's optimism on the other. If you're not reading at grade level in third grade, 80% of kids never catch up. 80% of kids not reading at grade level, by the time they leave third grade, never catch up. In a couple states in our union, they are building prisons based on third grade reading scores. They're projecting how many people will be incarcerated and how many prison facilities they need to have based on third grade reading scores. That's not acceptable in our country, and it's not acceptable for any of us in this room. So our elementary school we started called PS7, 95% African American, 80% free and reduced lunch. Our second graders and third graders have a proficiency rate of 90% in a poor neighborhood. Don't tell me kids can't learn in these communities. If you create an environment of high expectations, if you make sure that kids are ready when they come to school, if you have a high bar for attendance that, you know, we have a goal of 95 to 97% attendance, our kids go to a longer school day, a longer school year, they go year round. These are things that we all know work. But we've got to create a commitment and a framework in our communities that we hold everyone accountable to these goals and these aspirations. Our elementary school, if you look at our third graders right now, if you go to PS7, outside of their door, it says class of 2024. That's the year they're going to graduate from college. You can't tell these kids any different. Their parents, their grandparents have not went to college, but they're going to college. And that's what high expectations are truly about. So we have an opportunity, I think, again, to do something really, really powerful. So Ralph, thank you for allowing me to share for a few moments. I want to say to you folks in the room, there's nothing more important than we're doing here. This is one of the key levers in education. If we can crack open third grade, then we will crack open a city, a state, and a country that will finally be competitive, and most importantly, our children and families will get what they deserve. Thank you. I'm Kevin Johnson, the mayor of the city of Sacramento, capital of California.
All right. Mayor, would you talk about what is the importance of the grade level reading campaign in the work of Sacramento?
I think the grade level reading campaign is far overdue. I think cities around the country, certainly states, we need to do our part to make sure that all kids are reading at grade level, especially when you come out of third grade. That's a key indicator on a young person's success. If they're reading at grade level, then the chances of them going on to graduate high school and college have increased greatly. If they don't get to a point where they're reading at grade level by the time you end third grade, the chances of you graduating high school and college are slim to none.
How do the goals of the campaign intersect with the work that y'all currently do?
Well, Sacramento, we have a goal. We want to be the first city in the country where our third graders, if you go to a Sacramento public schools, that you will graduate third grade and be reading at grade level. That's our goal. So school readiness is important. You have to make sure that when kids come to school, they're ready to learn. School attendance is important. So we want a goal to have our kids come to school at least 95% of the time, especially kids who aren't reading at grade level. And then summer learning. You have to make sure you have longer school days, longer month, longer school years. You can't have this big gap during the summertime between the regular school year and the start of a new school year. You got to make sure that kids are doing productive things during the summertime.
And the final question, we got 30 seconds. What will success look like to Mayor Johnson?
Success in Sacramento will look like we become a city known for great public schools around the country, and we become the first city in the country that all third graders in Sacramento are reading at grade level.